Well, here we are. Thought I'd do a little video here for those who might want some more info on these shocks. Also, I'm going to go through and rebuild them with some very common hardware that you can pick up pretty much any hobby store if you're looking to make these a little better, I guess. So these are the 100mm, it says right there, aluminum adjustable shocks from HobbyKing.com. I'll put the link in the description. These things are dirt cheap. I'm talking like $4.50 a pair. Like, what? And they're all aluminum, adjustable collars. They have rubber O-rings, seals, steel drive shafts, E-clips with the shock piston. Straight up for $4, you can't go wrong, I don't think. Holy man, I was surprised. I threw them in as an add-on. A couple people reviewed them, said they're not bad, except they're assembled very poorly. I would agree with that 100%. I don't even think HobbyKing should assemble these. They should come unassembled. They fill them up with oil that, to me, looks and smells very much like 10W40 motor oil. As you can see here, it's a dark, and the cup had some other crap in it to start with, but that's the color, like a brown motor oil. Very inconsistently built from one to the other when I disassembled them. So here we go. I went and picked up some Traxxas E-clips. This is the part number 1633, $1.99. It's a big giant bag. Here's about half of them. I dumped a bunch out. It comes with all different sizes, 3 different sizes. These are the ones you want, the middle size. And I'm sure the Traxxas shock shafts would work as well if you wanted to put your hardened titanium coated, the titanium nitride coated shafts in. I'm sure they would work as well. However, I'm going to stick with these stock ones for now, just for testing purposes. However, the shock pistons that come in these are a joke. So I'll try and get you a close-up shot of them. They're not even a shock piston, man. Like, they're just absolutely horrible. So, first off, they don't even have holes in them. They just got a sleeve. And they're very, very thin. They actually wobble around on the E-clip. Between the E-clips, sorry, which just, you know, the whole piston's just going like this, and it can cause binding inside of the piston or the shock body itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is change those out. What I did is I got some Traxxas ones. These came, if you have Traxxas shocks, I'm sure you have these. You know, the 2 and 3 hole pistons, even 1 hole pistons. I'm going to go through and replace them all with 2 hole pistons. To start with, I might go with 2 in the front, say 3 hole piston in the rear later, something like that, but I'm going to start with 2 hole as a baseline. So basically they're a little too thick to fit between the 2 E-clips. So what I'm doing here is just sanding them down. I got some, maybe, what is this, 220 sandpaper, 220 grit. Here's one I've sanded down already, basically to get, expose that top E-clip, because you can't quite get the clip on. As you can see now, you can see that top race there to snap the E-clip in. Before it was a little too thick, it wouldn't fit, so you need to sand these down a little bit. Then, if I have any issues sliding them into the shock bodies, I'm going to use my trusty Dremel over here with that sanding attachment there, and as long as you make sure that these can spin freely on the shock shafts, you'll take off an even amount of plastic all the way around the shock, or all the way around the shock piston, sorry, to make them fit perfectly inside the shock body. So essentially you can make these a much better performing shock for a bargain of a price. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will show you along the way. Okay, so here we go. I didn't even have to sand it down on the outside edges. It fits perfectly, so I just swapped that to a Traxxas shock piston. I just had to sand it down quite a bit, so I just used a piece of paper, just lay it flat down there and just roll it back and forth a bunch of times and test fit it until you get it in there. Pliers, you know, I picked up this little hobby set of pliers. It came with like 5 of them or whatever, but this one here works very well, I find, for E-clips. It's got that flat section there, but pliers definitely need these. To pop the E-clips off, I just use a small flathead screwdriver with a very short or small pointed tip on it, and I just come in at the E-clip right between and just kind of twist the screwdriver sideways and it just pops loose. And then to put it back on, you got to snap it, and that's kind of the struggle. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for all the shocks and reassemble them. And then I'm going to use probably, I don't know, I got lots of different shock oils here. Probably in the 35 range somewhere to start. I should probably maybe go a little higher, maybe 45. So we'll see. One thing that does kind of bug me with these is the top of for mounting the shocks. These are just plastic and they just look like they're going to break. I'd much rather if these were metal. And this is what actually attaches the shock to the truck, right? So I'm sure there's some sort of an upgrade out there. As you can see, these are the shock caps here. This is what I'm talking about. They thread, not thread, they just drop in here, sorry. And then you've got the bladder that sits below them to hold them in, but they are plastic. So I'll run you through the disassembly here of the entire shock. So here it is assembled. This is how it comes from the factory. Doesn't even compress fully. The other one did. Yeah, so I'm going to start pulling that apart. I'll show you here is the springs. Super weak. I can compress them with my fingers, no problem. These are weaker than stock Traxxas springs. Another thing I thought I'd mention here, look at the rod end there. It's crooked, isn't it not? It's not sitting straight. All of them that I've pulled off have been on like that. They're cheap rod ends. However, any standard Traxxas rod end will thread onto this shock shaft. Okay, here's the oil that's inside. I thought I'd show you this. You see that color? Oh, that's beauty. It's motor oil. It actually smells like motor oil. Just don't even bother, HobbyKing. Like, just why make us go through all this crap? You should just let us assemble them from the start. So when you thread off the bottom collar here, there's two O-rings that are both in here. One's up in the hole and one's at the end of the shock shaft to stop any oil from leaking. So I just thread that off. It's nice that they're aluminum. The cap is aluminum and the shock bladder's there and everything. It's just this top piece is plastic. I'm sure you could find other mounts for these shocks. All the other Traxxas hardware seems to work, so that's very beneficial considering these shocks are very cheap. So I'm going to actually see if I can use the other Traxxas shock collars and such, or like the retainers and stuff. Okay, so here's the final video I'm going to put for these shocks. You'll have to excuse the horrible editing. I know I just kind of joined all the files together as they were multiple videos. So here they are, all rebuilt and reassembled now. And what's the awesome thing about this whole deal is I took out these crappy pistons that came stock with them, and believe me, they really are crappy. Let me see if I can find it. Here you go. Here's this Traxxas one. Look at the thickness difference for one. And the ones on the right here, sorry, are so loose in between the two E-clips that it just wobbles and it creates an issue where it binds inside of the shock body. Anyway, enough about that. So the springs that come with them, turf them. You know, they're garbage. They really, really are garbage. They're so weak that they're really useless for pretty much anything. But with a decent set of springs on here and some decent oil, they actually perform quite well. You know, in my hand they feel very nice compared, say, to a Traxxas big bore. shock, or even these Offnas, which do have a lot more oil inside them. Don't get me wrong; these are way better shocks. But these, for $4.50 a pair, you know, you can't really go wrong. Like, holy, these are gonna go on my my wife's little two-wheel drive up there, as I got the plastic Ultras, and I guarantee these are gonna be a good, solid upgrade. The only issue only thing I'm worried about is these top caps, but I know I can replace these with aluminum ones. I'll just have to try and track them down, or not even, just get spare plastic ones. Like you can see, they have them in there as well. Like I have them for my Offnas. Same kind of design. So anyway, there you go. There you have it. Thought I'd show you. Works really slick. I basically took the also I changed the stock rod ends with Traxxas rod ends, and then I used Traxxas retainers as the stock ones that come with it. See how much slop there is inside that it can sit on the rod end, like in there. There's a lot of slop, which I don't like. So if you use the Traxxas one and a Traxxas rod end, they actually fit together properly like they're supposed to. So that's what I've done. Also, with the larger springs of a regular size spring, the top retainer, or the top retainer is a little bit narrow. So one thing I was looking at doing, which would work fairly awesome, is just to use the inner retainers that come. I'll put the part number in the description here. I just had it up on the screen, or had the bag open a minute ago. But basically, one of these, the larger ones for the Ultra Shocks, these are a little bit thinner, so they would actually slide on. They don't quite go up on top of the adjustment here of the top retainer, but with a little Dremel work inside, I'm pretty certain they'll fit, and they'll snap up and just give you a little plastic right on top there. To eliminate the wobble, because these springs are, as you see, they're a little too big for the bodies, but that's a minor issue. They're not going to pop off or anything. They're still held on very well. So there you go. There's my basically breakdown, reassembly, and thoughts on these 100mm aluminum shocks from HobbyKing. Wow. Don't think you can really go wrong, guys. So thanks for watching.